No shouting, no revenge. Just a quiet smile from the woman they once mocked. What happened next made the entire room fall silent and their world collapse. The golden afternoon wrapped the Kensington mansion in a soft, honeyed light. The air shimmered with warmth, filled with laughter, the clinking of crystal glasses, and the faint hum of a string quartet playing by the garden fountain. Roses bloomed in perfect rows, trimmed and polished like everything else the Kensingtons owned, precise, elegant, and a little too proud of it. Mrs. Kensington stood beneath a white parasol, pearls gleaming against her neck, her laughter sharp and practiced. Beside her, Mr. Kensington adjusted his cufflinks, speaking loudly about business deals no one truly cared to understand. Their daughter Lily, perched on a chair with a phone in hand, half listening, half bored, a princess in her own perfect world. And then there was Amara. She moved quietly among them, carrying a silver tray of lemonade glasses, her uniform pressed but simple. Her posture was straight, her eyes calm, her presence almost invisible, at least to those who chose not to see her. Yet behind that quiet grace was a stillness that didn't belong to servitude. Beneath the golden sunlight, Amara's gaze lingered on the mansion, steady, unreadable, as if she knew something no one else did. The laughter came in waves, soft at first, then rising, sharp and brittle like glass breaking in sunlight. Mrs. Kensington's voice floated above it all, smooth but laced with poison. "You know," she said, swirling her champagne, "not everyone can afford a decent education. Some are just meant to serve." A few of the guests chuckled, unsure if they were laughing at the joke or out of habit. Mr. Kensington smirked, pretending not to hear. Lily shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her eyes darting toward Amara. Amara stood still, the tray in her hand steady as a heartbeat. For a brief second, the afternoon air seemed to pause. The only sound was the faint clink of ice in the lemonade glasses. Then she smiled. Not a forced smile, not one of fear or humiliation, but something softer, like a secret she chose not to share. "Would you like another drink, ma'am?" she asked, her voice even, graceful. The laughter faded, but Amara didn't notice. Or maybe she did, and chose not to care. There was something in her eyes that caught the light differently. Not anger, not surrender. It was something deeper, the quiet certainty of someone who already knew how this story would end. The sun had dipped lower, painting the mansion's hallways in amber light. Inside, the laughter from the garden had softened into murmurs, distant and hollow. Amara moved quietly through the corridors, her steps soundless against the marble floor. She carried herself not like a servant, but like someone walking through a memory, familiar, deliberate, almost reverent. She paused before the grand family portrait that hung above the staircase. The Kensingtons, frozen in perfect smiles and polished pride. The golden frames glimmered, but Amara's gaze wasn't on their faces. It lingered on the marble columns, the antique piano, the chandelier that caught the light just so. Her expression was unreadable, neither envy nor nostalgia, just quiet understanding. She slipped into the study, closing the door halfway. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Yes, I'll be there in 20 minutes, she said softly into her phone. "They're all home." Her tone was calm, measured, professional, words that didn't belong to a nanny. Minutes later, Lily passed by the study and froze. Through the crack of the door, she heard Amara again, speaking fluent, elegant French. Lily frowned, whispering to herself, "Why would a nanny speak like that?" But Amara's voice flowed on, poised, confident, like a melody Lily wasn't meant to understand. The afternoon light had softened into gold when the hum of an engine broke the quiet. A sleek black car rolled to a stop in front of the Kensington mansion, its surface gleaming like liquid glass. The guests, still lingering over dessert, turned their heads as two figures in dark suits stepped out, briefcases in hand, their movements brisk and purposeful. Mr. Kensington straightened, adjusting his tie, a confident smile spreading across his face. "Business associates," he murmured, already preparing his charm. The taller man looked around, his eyes scanning the scene until they found Amara, standing near the veranda, her tray empty now. "Good afternoon," he said clearly. "We're here for Mrs. Amara Davis. Is she available?" For a heartbeat, the world seemed to stop. The sound of the fountain faded, and even the birds outside grew silent. Mrs. Kensington blinked, then laughed. Brittle, forced. "I'm afraid you're mistaken," she said. "She's just the help." The man checked his documents, his voice steady but firm. "No, ma'am. No mistake. Mrs. Amara Davis is the new owner of this estate. Effective today." Gasps rippled through the garden. Mr. Kensington's smile collapsed, and Mrs. Kensington's pearls caught the dying sunlight, trembling ever so slightly. Silence swept through the garden like a sudden chill. The laughter, the murmurs, the hum of false elegance, all vanished. Only the soft rustle of the wind remained as every pair of eyes turned toward Amara. For years, the Kensingtons had believed her story began and ended with servitude. But Amara's past was far deeper, carved with resilience, patience, and quiet fire. Once, she had worked for a real estate firm, guiding wealthy clients through their purchases. It was she who had shown the Kensingtons this very mansion years ago, when their fortunes gleamed as brightly as their smiles. But time has a way of turning tides. The Kensington empire crumbled. Debts, poor deals, pride. While they mocked, Amara learned. She saved every dollar, studied every contract, and built her own company, hidden behind another name, away from eyes that saw her only as the help. When the Kensingtons defaulted, it was Amara's firm that quietly took ownership of the mansion. And today she had simply come home. The truth hung heavy in the air. Mrs. Kensington's hand trembled. Her crystal glass slipped, shattering against the marble. The sound echoed through the golden halls, sharp and final, like justice delivered. Mrs. Kensington stood frozen, her face pale beneath the soft glow of the setting sun. The air was thick, heavy with disbelief, pride collapsing under the quiet weight of truth. Amara stepped forward, her presence calm but commanding, her eyes gentle yet unyielding. "I never wished you harm," she said softly, her voice carrying the warmth of forgiveness and the strength of justice. "But perhaps now, Mrs. Kensington, you'll understand. Kindness costs nothing, but arrogance can cost everything." Her words lingered, sinking deep, more painful than any shout could have been. There was no triumph in her tone, only quiet resolve, the kind born from years of endurance and grace. Mrs. Kensington's lips trembled, but no words came. Behind her, Mr. Kensington looked down, his confidence stripped bare. Lily watched silently, something new flickering in her eyes, respect, maybe even shame. Amara turned toward the butler, who had served the family as long as she had known them. "Please," she said softly, "give them time to pack." The calmness in her voice filled the vast room, echoing against marble and pride alike. It was not vengeance that spoke, it was dignity, and in that silence, even the mighty seemed small. The Kensingtons departed in silence, the weight of their pride heavier than the suitcases they carried. No servants to escort them this time, no polite goodbyes to mask humiliation, only the soft crunch of gravel beneath their steps as they crossed the long driveway. Mrs. Kensington's eyes, once sharp with judgment, were now dull, lost somewhere between disbelief and regret. Mr. Kensington walked beside her, shoulders slumped, his confidence unraveling with every step. Lily turned once before stepping into the car, her gaze finding Amara standing at the doorway. For the first time, she didn't see a nanny. She saw a woman of quiet strength, someone who had won without ever needing to raise her voice. As the car disappeared beyond the iron gates, the world fell still. The sun dipped low behind the mansion, its golden light pouring through the tall windows, draping Amara in a soft, almost celestial glow. She walked through the halls that once echoed with laughter at her expense. Now they belonged to her, not just in name, but in dignity, and as her footsteps faded into the stillness, a gentle truth lingered in the air. Respect doesn't come from wealth. True class lies in how we treat those we think are beneath us, because someday the tables might turn. The mansion stood quiet beneath the deep orange sky, the last threads of sunlight glinting against its tall windows. The garden, once filled with laughter and polished pride, now seemed softer, humbled, peaceful. Inside, Amara stood by the window where she had once served drinks, her reflection framed by the fading glow of dusk. Everything was still. The scent of roses drifted through the open doors, and somewhere, a piano key hummed faintly as the evening breeze brushed across it. She breathed in, slow and steady, not with triumph, but with gratitude. For years she had been invisible, her worth measured only by what she carried, never by who she was. But now, the silence around her felt different. It was not emptiness, it was peace. She looked around the room, her eyes soft, her smile gentle. She had not taken revenge. She had reclaimed her story. Outside, the world turned golden one last time before nightfall. And as the narrator's voice echoed softly through the stillness, it carried the truth that her life now embodied. Never underestimate a kind heart or a humble spirit. Power built on arrogance fades, but dignity, once earned, never does.